Hi everyone. Today's read aloud we're going to do is going to be based on your reading assignment for watching the video about theme and kind of learning what the theme of a story is. Now, the theme of a story is kind of what the author wants you to learn. It's that central message. It's what idea does the author want you to understand and want you to learn from this story. It's not always going to have to do with what's specifically in the book. It's something you can apply in your real life. So, for example, in the fairy tale The Boy Who Cried Wolf, the theme isn't you shouldn't tell people that there's a wolf about to eat you because then you'll get eaten. That's very specific to just that story. The theme is something that can be applied to your whole life. So the theme that we should have learned is do not lie. So you can use that lesson that you've learned everywhere in your life, not just in a specific instance. So the story we're going to read today is called The Legend of the Indian Paintbrush. And I love this story because the theme is a very common theme. It's a theme you'll hear and you'll see in a lot of different books. But this one just kind of represents the theme in a unique way, which I really like. Before we get started, it's important to know a few things. So this is a Native American, and he's part of a tribe, and it's important to know that the men of Native American nations or tribes were expected to do the hunting and all of kind of the manly stuff, all of the hard work, and the women were meant to stay home and do all the cooking and cleaning and taking care of the children. And there are also members of the tribe called shaman, which were kind of the religious people of the group. They made sure that they talked about religion and they talked about spirits and all of that stuff. And then finally, there's an event that a lot of Native Americans would go through where they have to go on a journey by themselves to kind of see a vision. And once they saw that vision, then they turned into a whole being and they kind of understood what their goal in life was, what their dream in life was supposed to be. So, with all that in mind, as I'm reading, think about what lesson, what theme the author is trying to convey through this story. Many years ago, when the people traveled the plains and lived in a circle of teepees, there was a boy who was smaller than the rest of the children in the tribe. No matter how hard he tried, he couldn't keep up with the other boys who were always riding, running, shooting their bows, and wrestling to prove their strength. Sometimes his mother and father worried for him. But the boy, who was called Little Gopher, was not without a gift of his own. From an early age, he made toy warriors from scraps of leather and pieces of wood. And he loved to decorate smooth stones with the red juices from berries he found in the hills. The wise shaman of the tribe understood that Little Gopher had a gift that was special. Do not struggle, Little Gopher. Your path will not be the same as the others. They will grow up to be warriors. Your place among the people will be remembered for a different reason. And in a few years, when Little Gopher was older, he went out to the hills alone to think about becoming a man, for this was the custom of the tribe, and it was there that a dream vision came to him. The sky filled with clouds, and out of them came a young Indian maiden and an old grandfather. She carried a rolled-up animal skin, and he carried a brush made of fine animal hairs and pots of paints. So this is that journey I was kind of talking about. Now he's going to find out what his goal in life is going to be. The grandfather spoke, "My son, these are the tools by which you shall become great among your people. You will paint pictures of the deeds of the warriors and the visions of the shaman, and the people shall see them and remember them forever." The maiden unrolled a pure white buckskin and placed it on the ground. "Find a buckskin as white as this," she told him. Keep it, and one day you will paint a picture that is as pure as the colors in the evening sky. So he's kind of learning now that his role in the tribe, his goal is to use his artistic skills to make something that everyone will remember. And as she finished speaking, the clouds cleared and a sunset of great beauty filled the sky. Little Gopher looked at the white buckskin, and on it he saw colors as bright and beautiful as those made by the setting sun. Then the sun slowly sank behind the hills, the sky grew dark, and the dream vision was over. Little Gopher returned to the circle of the people. The next day he began to make soft brushes from the hairs of different animals and stiff brushes from the hair of the horses' tails. He gathered berries and flowers and rocks of different colors and crushed them to make his paints. He collected the skins of animals, which the warriors brought home from their hunts. He stretched the skins on wooden frames and pulled them until they were tight. So that's how they used to make canvases to paint on. They would take the skins of the animals that they would hunt and stretch them out and let them dry on that frame, and then that is what they would paint on. And he began to paint pictures of great hunts, of great deeds, of great dream visions, so that the people would always remember. But even as he painted, Little Gopher sometimes longed to put aside his brushes and ride out with the warriors. But always he remembered his dream vision, and he did not go with them. So he's feeling a little bit left out, a little bit jealous that he can't go out with the warriors and do all the things that the boys and the strong people are supposed to do. But he's doing as his dream vision said, so hopefully that will work out for him. Many months ago, he had found his pure white buckskin, but it remained empty because he could not find the colors of the sunset. He used the brightest flowers, the reddest berries, and the deepest purples from the rocks, and still his paintings never satisfied him. They looked dull and dark. He began to go to the top of a hill each evening and look at the colors that filled the sky to try and understand how to make them. He longed to share the beauty of his dream vision with the people. But he never gave up trying, and every morning when he awoke, he took out his brushes and his pots of paints and created the stories of the people with the tools he had. One night as he lay awake, he heard a voice calling to him, "Because you have been faithful to the people and true to your gift, you shall find the colors you are seeking. Tomorrow, take the white buckskin and go to the place where you watch the sun in the evening. There on the ground you will find what you need." The next evening, as the sun began to go down, Little Gopher put aside his brushes and went to the top of the hill as the colors of the sunset spread across the sky. And there, on the ground all around him, were brushes filled with paint, each one a color of the sunset. Little Gopher began to paint quickly and surely, using one brush, then another. As the colors in the sky began to fade, Little Gopher gazed at the white buckskin, and he was happy. He had found the colors of the sunset. He carried his painting down to the circle of the people, leaving the brushes on the hillside. And the next day, when the people awoke, the hill was ablaze with color, for the brushes had taken root in the earth and multiplied into plants of brilliant reds, oranges, and yellows. And every spring from that time, the hills and meadows burst into bloom. So the brushes he left on the hills actually turned into flowers and made the hill nice and colorful. And every spring the people danced and sang the praises of Little Gopher, who had painted for the people. And the people no longer called him Little Gopher, but he who brought the sunset to the earth. The end. So as I was reading, I asked you to think about what you thought the theme of that story was. And when I think about it, I think the author wants us to understand that it's not always the biggest and strongest and toughest people that are able to make a difference. You have an individual talent. Everybody has a talent that makes them special and makes them who they are, and their talent is able to change the world around them, no matter how big or how small somebody might think it is. And as long as you stay ambitious and you stay persistent and you work towards your goals and you work towards that talent that you have and you never lose sight of it, it can really make a big difference. So I hope you learned a little something from that story. I really enjoyed that, and I love, it kind of tells a story about why we have so many flowers of different colors. That's a great story. I love it. I hope you enjoyed it. Stick around for our math problem of the day. Love you, miss you all, and I can't wait to see you soon. Welcome back for our math problem of the day. This one is again about fractions, which makes me really excited. You know how much I love fractions. So this one is about Brady and Ryan, and they got a large pizza to share. Brady ate 6/8 of the pizza. The first part of the question is asking what fraction was left for Ryan, and then we need to find an equivalent fraction that matches the answer that we got. So we know that they ordered a pizza and Brady ate 6/8 of it. Well, I know on a fraction there are two different parts. There's the numerator and the denominator. The denominator is the total number of pieces that something is cut into, or the total number of pieces in a set. So I know when I make my fraction circle, the denominator is going to be the total number of pieces in that circle. And remember, the pieces have to be equal. So I'm going to split this circle, this pizza, into 8 pretty much equal pieces. Now 6 is the total number that we count or we take away, or the numerator is the part that we focus on in the story. So we know that Brady ate 6 of those pieces. So I'll put a B in each piece or each slice that Brady eats. So I know that that one is for Brady. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So 6 of those pieces, 6 of those 8 are meant for Brady. That means the rest of it was for Ryan. So this one was for Ryan, and this one was for Ryan. Well, what fraction of the pizza is now for Ryan? Well, I know that my denominator is not going to change. It's still the same total number of pieces. There are still 8 pieces in that pizza. But Ryan only got 2 of them. So Ryan has 2/8 of that pizza. But now, the second part of the question is we need to find an equivalent fraction. And equivalent fractions, that word equivalent means equal. So even though the numerator and the denominator are actually going to be different numbers, that doesn't mean that it's going to be a different fraction. It's just going to be cut into different pieces. So one way that we can find an equivalent fraction is to do the same multiplication sentence for the numerator and the denominator, because numerators and denominators are very selfish. If you do something to the numerator, you have to do the same thing to the denominator. So if I look at 2/8, let's say I want to multiply the numerator by 2, I have to do the same thing to the denominator, times 2. So my answer would be 2 times 2 is 4, 8 times 2 is 16. So 4/16 is an equivalent fraction to 2/8. Another way to find an equivalent fraction is to do a division equation. Now this one's a little bit trickier because you need to make sure that both the numerator and the denominator can be divided by that number. But I know 2 and 8 are both even numbers, and all even numbers can be divided by 2. So if I have my original fraction 2/8, and let's say I divide the numerator by 2, and I divide the denominator by 2. Well, 2 divided by 2 is 1, and 8 divided by 2 is 4. So 2/8 is also equivalent to 1/4. There are many, many answers for equivalent fractions. Those are just 2 examples of how to find them. You can use fraction bars, you could use this circle as an example, any way to kind of represent an equivalent fraction works for me. I hope that made sense. I know fractions, like I said in our last video, are kind of fresh in our brain, but it's important to keep working at them, and it's important to keep training our brain on those because they're going to get more and more tricky as you get into the higher grades. 4th and 5th grade aren't going to be an easy question like this. They're going to get a little trickier. So the more you practice now, the more persistent you are now, the better you'll be in the future. So thanks again for watching. Love you and miss you all. I'm going to do a Zoom meeting tomorrow. I will email everybody and let you know what time that will be, so be on the lookout for that. And I can't wait to see you all. Love you, miss you. Stay safe, stay healthy.